Good morning and happy 4th of July, everyone. I hope you're settled in. It's a beautiful day in Costa Mesa. It's bright and sunny, and the beaches are closed. And not only that, but Newport Beach flooded last night because of a moon event, which is quite interesting. But anyway, happy 4th of July. Uh, It's a very important date in American life, and it's also a very important date in concerning the Bavarian Illuminati and uh, esoteric masonry uh, world too. Today, we're going to do my second introduction to a Masonic related piece of art and literature. It's Mozart, Magic, and Masonry. This is my pre-performance address to the 2002 opening night performance of the Los Angeles Opera. It was held at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles Music Center, and it was March 24th, 2002. It's a long story how I got to do this, but I have to thank my dear friend and our dear friend and Miss Carolyn Tilley, who arranged for this to happen. So I hope you're listening, Carrie, and someday I'll introduce one of your books too. I've got your newest. But anyway, so because this is Los Angeles and Hollywood and everything, I started my speech in my best movie trailer voice. In a world where your mother is a homicidal moon goddess and your father is a sun-worshipping cult leader, your only protection just may be a very confused prince with a flute and a guy dressed up like a bird with a glockenspiel. I'm Lon DuQuette, and I'm very proud to say I'm a Mason. My father was a Mason. My brother is a Mason. Many of the men whose lives and works have inspired, enlightened, and encouraged me throughout my life have been Masons. Masonry is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, secular fraternities in the world. It traces its modern origin to 1717, when a Grand Lodge was formed from several existing lodges in London. Just how long those lodges had been in existence prior to 1717 is unclear. There are some 130 versions of Masonic documents known as the Old Charges that date from about 1390. But Masonic tradition would have trace its origins back much farther, back to the medieval cathedral builders, trade unions, back to the Dionysian artificers who built the great civic monuments of the Roman Empire, back to the builders of King Solomon's temple, even to the craftsmen who built the great pyramids of Egypt. Of course, there is no real evidence to support the existence of a prehistoric International Brotherhood of Pyramid Builders, Local 327. But even if none of the traditional histories of the craft can stand the scrutiny of historians, it's clear that Freemasonry as an initiatory society is an incarnation, if not the heir to, the great mystery schools of antiquity, especially those that flourished in and around the Mediterranean basin, the Eleusinians, the rites of Mendes, of Osiris, Isis, Dionysus, Serapis, Mithras, and the Persian Magi, from whence we get the word magic. The mystery schools taught that ultimately the true essence of each man and woman is divine. In fact, if ever we could come to full realization of our true natures, we would discover we are one and the same with the supreme consciousness and life force of the universe. Among the various mystery rites, the name and symbolic character of the deity chosen to represent this supreme consciousness varied considerably. But they had one very important thing in common. They all surmised that it's possible to consciously raise oneself to supreme realization. They attempted to assist this evolutionary process by degrees, by means of a step-by-step program of purification and instruction, and by literally mutating the candidate's character, by putting him or her through a series of dramatic and artfully choreographed personal ordeals. In the early years of the Christian era, Alexandria, Egypt, was the center of the intellectual, philosophical, and initiatory world. The universal order and stability of the Roman Empire brought the world together as never before. For a brief and brilliant moment in time, knowledge and wisdom gleaned from scores of cultures, from China and India to Egypt, Israel, Europe, and Britain, synthesized within 3 great libraries. Here the holy wisdom of the Hebrew Kabbalah met the celestial sciences of the Chaldean astronomers and the occult wisdom of the Egyptian priests of Isis. Here the subtleties of Taoist and Buddhist philosophies touched the mathematical science and pragmatic politics of the Greeks. A catastrophic fire destroyed much of at least one of Alexandria's great libraries, and the growth and often violent zeal of a young Christian movement, for all intents and purposes, put an end to the overt activities of the mystery schools. Carl Sagan speculated that had the wealth of information stored in Alexandria not been destroyed, the level of technology that placed a man on the moon in the 20th century would have been reached in the 1500s. Be that as it may, we know that there survived throughout the suffocating centuries of the Dark Ages a body of men who, because of their unique knowledge and skills, formed a distinct class of world citizen. Men who could move freely from town to town, city to city, kingdom to kingdom, unrestricted by the limits of feudal servitude. Masters of geometry and construction who could make stone rise to heaven. Master artists who could enshrine the symbolic and mathematical secrets of creation within the very dimensions and ornaments of buildings that would stand for 1,000 years. These were free Masons. Men who, by virtue of their own talent, wit, and experience, had freed them from the tyranny of kings and the oppression of the church. The Freemason was the archetype for the modern, liberated human being. Freemasons were quite literally the coolest guys in the Western world. When the great cathedral projects ended, the fraternity evolved from being one that applied its mystical principles upon stone to one that does so upon the hearts of human beings. By 1784, when Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart became a Mason, the progressive Masonic ideals of love, tolerance, enlightenment, and universal brotherhood were poised to set Europe and America on fire with revolution. Late in 1790, Mozart learned Masonry would soon be outlawed in Austria. He conspired with a brother Mason, librettist and theater owner Emanuel Schikaneder, to enshrine the essence of Masonic ideals within a light-hearted and seemingly innocuous opera. That opera is, of course, The Magic Flute. And like all of Mozart's creation, it is constructed on many levels. The first level is purely musical. By this point in Mozart's career, he was famous for creating melodies that were not only beautiful to the ear, but memorable to the mind. Mozart wrote music you could hum and whistle. His musical logic was so clean and natural that the listener's ear anticipates each upcoming phrase as if the music is gushing spontaneously from our own mind. Mozart's audience frequently became so instantly infected by these almost déjà vu melodies that they joined in with the principals on the second and subsequent refrains. The music of the Magic Flute is delightful, and I'm sure there was no doubt in Mozart's mind that once it was heard, it would be impossible to erase it from the musical consciousness of the world. The next level was that of contemporary comment. Several of the characters in Magic Flute were quite recognizable caricatures of some of the most important and powerful people of the day. The darkly passionate and vengeful Queen of the Night was the perfect image of Empress Maria Theresa, whose opposition to the ideals of the Enlightenment and her hatred for Masonry was well known. Our hero, Tamino, was clearly based on Emperor Joseph II, the son of Maria Theresa, who was not only a driving force of the Enlightenment, but also an early activist for equality between the classes and the sexes. Tamino's efforts early in the opera to please the Queen of the Night is a touching comment on the efforts of a royal son who in his youth naturally made efforts to please his imperious mother. And Sarastro, the wise and noble Hierophant of the temple of Isis und Osiris, could only have been Vienna's most revered Grand Master of Masons, Ignaz von Born. Von Born was the most idealized example of the enlightened man, humanitarian, scientist, and teacher. The next level is more esoteric and Masonic. And here we ask, does the Magic Flute actually reveal Masonic secrets? Technically, no. Masonic secrets concern themselves primarily with the claptrap of the fraternity, the signs of recognition, the handshakes, passwords, and of course, the details of the dramatic ceremonies of the initiations. There are very few aspects of the Magic Flute that would worry any Mason who actually knows what is and what is not secret in the craft. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe also a Freemason, said this of the magic flute: "It is enough that the crowd would find pleasure in seeing the spectacle. At the same time, its high significance will not escape the initiates." In the time we have left before we enjoy tonight's performance, I'd like to highlight just a few of those elements of high significance that do not escape initiates. Let's begin by observing Mozart's use of the number 3. The number 3 is, for a number of reasons, a highly significant number to Masons. The overture of the Magic Flute exploits quite dramatically 3 chords sounded in batteries of 3. These same 3 chords are sounded in the temple scenes. As we will soon see, there are 3 temples, 3 doors, 3 attendants to the Queen of Night, 3 guiding angels, and 3 rounds of voting. Brother Mozart even wrote the Magic Flute in E flat, a key that contains 3 flats in the key signature. While these are interesting tidbits, they are hardly veil-rending expositions of Masonic secrets. The temple scenes, however, we see the suggestion of many elements of secret Masonic procedure, from the way the Brotherhood admits the candidate and votes upon his admission, to the various tests of fidelity, silence, and secrecy. Most especially, the ordeal of initiation itself. Peeling back yet another layer of esoteric secrets, we discover that Brothers Mozart and Schikaneder incorporated key elements of the Hebrew Kabbalah within the characters and plot of their opera. We must remember that the mystical science of Kabbalah, mystical sciences such as Kabbalah, alchemy, and ceremonial magic, were subjects of intense fascination to many Masons of the 18th century. And it is not at all surprising that these 2 Masons with a mission would want to load their masterpiece with the biggest mystical punch they could. A fundamental concept of the Kabbalah divides creation and the human soul into 4 levels. These 4 levels correspond to the 4 letters of the great name of God, which in Hebrew is spelled Yod, He, Vav, He. Most of the non-Jewish world pronounces this Jehovah. The dynamics that exist between and among all things represented by these 4 sacred letters is the focus of Kabbalistic study and meditation. But if we were simply to personify Yod He Vav He as a family, they would have the characteristics of a father, a mother, a son, and a daughter. And if we thought of them as royalty, they would be a king, a queen, a prince, and a princess. The Kabbalistic scenario goes something like this. If each of us really knew our true spiritual identity, we would realize that we were like a king who is the most awake being of all. But for some reason, we have chosen to fall asleep. The king has fallen asleep and is dreaming he's the queen of the universe, who has fallen asleep and is dreaming she is the prince of the universe, who has fallen asleep and is dreaming he is a sleeping princess. Unenlightened humanity is just like the sleeping beauty. We are dead to the greater reality and have completely forgotten our divine birthright. We are asleep to our true spiritual nature, and we are dreaming that we are trapped in a tomb of matter and time and space. This is just the position Princess Tamina finds herself during the first act of the Magic Flute. There is part of us, however, that is not so deeply asleep. A part of us that remembers that there's something more, This more awake self is our own Prince Charming. If he could only kiss our sleeping beauty and break the spell of illusion, then the princess could marry the prince and become the even more awake queen. And by doing so, the prince will automatically be elevated to become the most awake king. The great secret to this Kabbalistic soap opera is, of course, the Zen-like revelation that each one of us has been the most awake king all along. I know this sounds hopelessly mystical and abstract, because it is hopelessly mystical and abstract. It is also the hidden scaffolding that supports and sustains the Western spiritual tradition, and as such it is naturally the plot and the subplot of the magic flute. We have King Sarastro, the Queen of the Night, Prince Tamino, and Princess Pamina. And on the lower level, we have Papageno and Papagena, who in their own more mundane universe play Prince and Princess to Tamina and Pamina. The most esoteric statement made by the magic flute, however, is the one that shocked even free-thinking Masons of Vienna and proves Mozart to be a revolutionary even within a revolutionary society and a visionary mystic among mystics. Despite several charming and by modern standards incredibly incorrect ditties about the nature of women in earlier scenes, the opera climaxes with the dual initiation of Tamino and Pamina, a surprise ending that was very unsettling to many in the all-male Masonic fraternity. To initiates, this is more than just a social comment on the equality of the sexes. It's a bold and visionary statement that touches upon the very dynamics of humanity's evolving consciousness. At the beginning of the opera, we meet an awesome and beautiful Queen of the Night enthroned upon the moon. She represents a time in human history when woman was the supreme mystery, an innocent but primitive age when life appeared to spring directly from woman, and it was linked to the cycles of the moon. This was a time of the great goddess and the matriarchal social and religious institutions. As human consciousness evolved, we began to recognize how important the sun was to life on Earth and the importance of man's contribution to the procreative process. The pendulum swung violently in the opposite direction. Patriarchies supplanted matriarchies, and the great goddess was overthrown and ruthlessly subjugated by male gods. This is the source of the vengeful hatred that the lunar Queen of the Night feels for Sarastro and his sun-worshipping order. Mozart envisioned the next step in human consciousness, when equality and balance between the sexes is achieved, when the moon and the sun are no longer at war, but united to bring a new light to the world. Initiation means a beginning. And Pamina and Tamino's initiation at the end of the magic flute represents Mozart's sweetest hope that a new and wonderful age was at hand. An age in which the Masonic ideals of brotherly love, relief, and truth would manifest in the hearts of all humanity. And this is a quote from the opera. An age when, as the three guiding angels sing, all doubts will disappear, when only the wise will rule. O heavenly peace, return to us, and fill the hearts of all. Then the earth will a heaven seem, and mortals will have godly esteem. Well, it's almost time for the opera to begin. We are very lucky people. A wonderful, delightful, and magical initiation awaits us just inside the great doors of the Temple of Music. An initiation we can experience simply by seeing, hearing, and enjoying. The ritual team is almost ready. Grand Master Placido Domingo has consecrated the temple. Maestro Foster and Sir Peter Hall will serve tonight as junior and senior wardens. And our worshipful master in the East will be none other than the immortal spirit of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Thank you very much, and enjoy your evening. And that's how the talk ended, and it was a delightful and memorable performance. Anyway, that's enough for today. Tomorrow we start a new section of the book, I think the final section, and I think some of the juiciest parts. So until tomorrow, be safe tonight. Don't blow your fingers off or anything crazy. And stop doing it at 10 o'clock, because there's old people like Constance and me living next door to you that just freak out at all of the M80s and bombs around us. Okay, until tomorrow, Sunday, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. Bye-bye.